They say some wishes should never be made, especially when whispered to the sea. This is the story of Nafisa, a woman whose search for love opened the door to the world beneath the waves. Nafisa sat quietly as her parents spoke. Her mother's voice was calm, but heavy with concern. "You're not getting younger, Nafisa. What are you waiting for?" Her father added softly. "Even your younger cousins have children now." Nafisa didn't respond. She just stared out the window, eyes distant, lost in thought. The next day at work, it was no different. Her colleagues, sipping tea and whispering behind their screens, smiled knowingly when she walked by. "Still single, Nafisa?" one said, pretending to joke. "You must be hiding someone," another teased. "Or maybe you're just too picky." Nafisa smiled politely, said nothing, and walked out. But as she returned home that evening, their words followed her, like shadows she couldn't shake. She thought about her life, about Udo, Ziggy, Lunt, Rema, Inikpatik, and Barbarola. All the men she had met over the years, 18 years of searching, 18 years of heartbreaks, promises, and disappointments. She was 38 now. And the weight of the world, the questions, the stares, the loneliness, pressed harder with every birthday. All she wanted was love. Not perfection, not a fairy tale, just peace. That night, Nafisa stood before her mirror. Her long, natural African hair flowed freely down her back. She wore a simple dress, no makeup, no gel, no pretense. She looked at herself and whispered, "I did everything. I waited, I prayed. I smiled, but no one came. I'm beautiful, well-raised, industrious. What's wrong with me? Why can't I find my own man?" Her reflection didn't answer. But something inside her shifted. Something quiet and freeing. The next morning, Nafisa went to the beach. Barefoot, she walked along the shore. She ate roasted corn, laughed as the waves chased her feet, and let the wind lift her hair. For the first time in a long while, she felt alive, and as she looked out at the horizon, she said softly, "And then I stopped waiting. I started living." Just then a man jogged past her, tall, dark-skinned, muscular, with blonde hair that shimmered in the sunlight, and golden eyes that caught her by surprise. He slowed, turned, and smiled. "You run," he said, "like you've just been born." Nafisa laughed. "Maybe I have," she replied. They both laughed, the kind of laughter that feels like home. That evening they met again. His name was Kuba. They talked for hours, ate together, danced in her living room. She didn't ask about his family. She didn't care about where he came from or what he did. I didn't ask, she thought. I didn't care. I just let it be. 3 weeks later, Kuba asked her to marry him. It was spontaneous, simple, beautiful. A small garden, sunlight filtering through the trees. No parents, no siblings, just love. Kuba invited 3 close friends, vibrant, joyful, full of laughter. He looked into her eyes and said, "My parents aren't around, but you're enough." And there, under the open sky, they exchanged vows. Nafisa glowed like dawn after a long night. Days later, her friends came to visit. They couldn't hide their amazement. "How did you find him?" one asked. "He's perfect," said another. "And you didn't even try." Nafisa only smiled, her dimples deepening. She didn't need to explain. She knew. That night, Nafisa lay in bed beside Kuba. He was fast asleep, peaceful. She turned to him, smiling softly. Kuba, could be worse," she whispered. "Could be everything." The next morning, her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. "We heard you married a stranger." "Are you sure?" Nafisa looked at the text, then at Kuba, his breathing calm, his face serene. A tear slipped down her cheek, not from doubt, but from quiet joy. She whispered to herself, smiling, "I didn't marry a stranger. I married peace." It started one quiet night in Calabar. Nafisa sat alone in her living room, half asleep, when she heard waves crashing inside her head. Suddenly, she was no longer in her home. She stood barefoot on the beach. The air was cold, and from the dark waters, a woman in white appeared. Her face blurred, her scream echoing like wind through a shell. 2 children stood beside her crying, holding sticks. Before Nafisa could move, they began to whip her, scream at her. And then she woke up, her body drenched in sweat, her heart pounding. By morning, she was feverish and weak. The doctors said it was exhaustion, but that was only the beginning. Every 2 days, the same nightmare returned. Each time, the woman and her ghostly children beat her until she woke. Each time she grew weaker. Her husband Kuba, ever gentle, cared for her. He cooked. He cleaned. He whispered, "Don't worry, Nafisa, the dreams will stop." But they never did. And Kuba never went to work. Nafisa began to ask questions. She had never met Kuba's family. Not once had his 2 friends from the wedding visited again. And somehow his phone never rang. Still, Nafisa stayed, until one day she lost her job. Her body was frail, her skin pale, her once bright smile gone. She sold everything she owned to pay hospital bills. Her mother, furious at Kuba's idleness, took her daughter back home. At home, a reverend was called to pray. He placed his hand on Nafisa's head, his voice trembling as he whispered ancient verses. Then his eyes widened. He stepped back and shouted, "This man you married is not a man at all." Gasps filled the room. The reverend continued, "Kuba is a spirit from the sea, a husband of the deep. The women and children who torment Nafisa are his real family." Nafisa's parents rushed back to her apartment, but it was empty. Kuba was gone. No trace, no clothes, no scent. Just silence, and the soft sound of the sea outside the window. From that night, Nafisa never had the nightmare again. Her health slowly returned, and her parents learned something powerful. That not every heartache means failure, and not every person is meant to be married. If you ever walk the beaches of Calabar and hear the waves whisper your name, remember Nafisa and think twice before asking the sea for love. This was The Haunting of Nafisa, a tale by Gungus. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.